Okay.
Okay, well, Tanya and I are here discussing the colors that we see specifically in Biofield viewer images. This is not about the colors of the Biofield by any stretch of the imagination, but very specifically for Biofield viewer practitioners or people who may have a soul mirror image and you want to interpret the colors. That's what this meeting is about. It's one of two meetings. We're just going to discuss pretty loosely, I was looking for a better word, but loosely came out. You know, the kind of things that we're seeing and we're kind of honing in today. And then in our final discussion, we're actually going to like print our manual, as it were. So that's what we're doing here. Tanya, hi, how are you?
Hi, good. Thor, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. We've had a bit of a busy morning, but I made it back in time. Um, I figured it might be a good idea to start with red and work our way up, even though I'm not going to actually start with red, but I want to start
Should
down
we
there.
pull up the existing definitions and then we can read what is
Yeah, can you do that?
there?
Have you
Yeah,
got that magic?
absolutely. I sure can.
Okay, well, let's start with red and talk about red, and then we'll work our way up to white from red. Cool. Awesome. Okay, well that's perfect. It's even starting with red in the manual, so that's good. I'm not speaking. Okay, so oh well, this is interesting because that's already talking about what it's doing, isn't it? And I think that's an interesting, perhaps second paragraph for each section, that not only what the color means but where we see it and what it might be doing when we're seeing it. I quite like that. Okay, so
So
let's
this is literally copy and paste existing from the current manual.
I know, and we've always been very light on colors because of our training being so intensive. Okay, so I mean, even though there are so many different hues of red, a good example of discussing red is that we like to see red lines in the biofield, especially running parallel down the legs. Red implies good grounding. Red, it also is, it's a slower color, if that's something you can say, and therefore we use red for shielding. We create kind of candy floss, and we use red to do that, and various hues of red. The kind of pillar box red is fresh, like fresh paint, means the issue itself could be a fresh issue, acute, if you like. And then there's the other side of it, which is as red becomes more earthy and loses its shine, and the color becomes maybe I sometimes say muddied, you know, as the red becomes, and that is a sense of loss of flow in an area that's already being shielded. So it's almost like, you know, the I don't know what I should, no, I can't say that. I'm not going to use that. But so where do we see red? I mentioned earlier about shielding. We use red for shielding because it's slower. It's like we're weaving a web of cocoon, rather, of protection around ourselves. So we use red to do that. So, for example, if someone has sensitivity over some unresolved trauma or a repeat pattern that somehow is kind of in their field, locked into their solar system, then we'll see red, because they're shielding that particular area because they're working on it and they don't want anyone having anything else to do with it. And it's funny because the language is very important, and I guess that's coming up through all this as well. But in terms of red, and over to you, Tanya.
So red, I agree with you. Red is shielding. I find that red is also oftentimes our focal point when we're looking at our images. We're going to
Okay.
start and we're going to look for, the red and that slower moving congested energy is what I generally,
Yeah,
that's where I go for, is
yeah,
that helps identify, and then from there we can take a look at the other colors and create the story per se.
yeah. Well, you could also say that red is the color that disease uses to ground itself into the body. You know, it's once it's still high flying, speedy light, it's not capturing the cells, but once it gets down into that red, um, I can't remember the esoteric element associated with red. Um,
Meaning like
uh,
the chakra.
well, yeah, I mean, there's like yellow is carbon, that kind of thing. I'm just going to quickly look it up. Um, of course, now you need to know what you're looking for on Google, otherwise you know that. Red is the color. Okay, keep going.
In terms of red, like what I use red for.
Yeah, no, when you see, where have you noticed it in the body?
Well, I noticed red is in the chakra centers for sure, in the third eye and oftentimes in the throat. We see it shielding across the chest often if there's grief or heartbreak. Um, I also see it shielding over top of different places in the digestive system as well, depending on what's going on, whether it's stomach, liver, kidneys, um, intestines.
So
So I
it can be
see
anywhere.
it can be anywhere essentially, and it
So I
creates a
mean,
focal point.
if say if you saw red socks or red legs, what would that imply to you?
To me, that would be an ungrounded, poor circulation, or previous trauma or injury.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, it's like the energy flows almost. I mean, I talk about oxbow lakes, you know, because I like the analogy of the meandering flow. So ultimately, you are going to end up with silting up your own channel, and that would be a reflection of red. But I mean, there is this other exciting element. You know, when you look at an orange, the fruit, it's absorbing every color but orange, and it's
Mhm.
reflecting orange. There is that element as well in the biofield. So as I was saying, what color is what element? I just escaped me momentarily. But oxygen is the red effectively. So if someone is depleted of oxygen, then we might see red in their biofield. It's that kind of thing that we're getting at in this discussion. The kind of reasons. I think we've done a really good job, to be honest. And the fact that there's always this spectrum within the color itself, which is whether it's bright and almost fluorescent, popping, like some of the greens we see, that's almost like, yeah, black light green, isn't it? They're light,
Mhm.
they're bright, they have brightness to them. They have a luminescence, whereas bioluminescence, whereas red, I mean, all of these colors can go, and that darkness and that bioluminescence can be depleted. And that's what is the opportunity for optimization, is like, oh, wow, this is depleted. So we can focus on that area and get back up to, you know, fully charged. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how I like to see it. Okay, so
So I would
now,
say, like, when it comes in terms of looking for slow moving energy, or that red and that dark pink or that hot pink, whatever word we want to choose to use for it, those are really that's what creates the main story.
yeah,
And I find everything else is supporting, but that red and that hot pink, in my opinion, is one of the most important colors
yeah,
when we're looking at the
yeah.
biofield.
Well, oxygen is very important, and also, like I said, it's where the body and the emotional body intersect. So if we're seeing red, that's where the trouble is going to brew in the body. But I mean, if we keep pursuing this a little bit, like on a dog, we see red. That's the color that guides us where they may have arthritic hips, or that you can almost say that red is a color we see with chronic disease, and pain. I'm happy to say that this red, if we see red, we can ask the client, the scanny, how much does that hurt? And it may well be like, not that, because we've discussed, oh, we've discussed that red can follow other avenues of meaning. And as you said, this is the hottest color for us in a sense, because it does speak to so many issues. And then the other thing I wanted to say was I did some research for the batch flower people. A couple of ladies were hired to write a book for the batch flower people. And so we did the craziest research I've ever done in my life with these unbelievably enlightened garden center. There's a couple who owned a garden center literally the other side of the valley from me. I'm so blessed. He was like a wizard, basically. He actually looked like a wizard, and all intents and purposes, he was a wizard. He was a wizard. We did, I don't know, like every single batch bark flower plant. We were imaging the plants, not the remedy bottles, the plants, because we were doing old maid, matching the colors of the biofields of the plants with the color therapy to see if batch flower remedies were in the same spectral range as color therapy, if you get what I mean. Like I'm advising one lady at the moment who's doing the same thing with homeopathy. My friend Nigel had all these homeopathic remedies, and he mixed them up, and we had to work out which one what it was, and we did it by the color of the biofield of the remedy.
Wow.
So there's a lot in this, and so I would say that when we tested all these batch flowers, they all had beautiful energy fields. And thank you. And yet, so the guy, this wizard guy, at the end of the day goes, well, all you've seen now is healing plants. Let me show you some toxic plants. So he comes back with these really gnarly plants that even you're not allowed to have. Like if you see some of these plants in nature, you're supposed to cut them down. I mean, I'm not saying he wasn't allowed to have them because he knew what he was doing. Excuse my French, but yeah, there was at least two plants that had, like we look at the banding around people.
Mm-hmm.
They were black and red, black and red, black and red, like this. At least two of these plants. And if you think about it, like snakes and wasps, they use black and yellow. And then when they're super poisonous, it's black and red, like the crate and certain insects and the black widow. If you really like got a real toxic load in you, it's going to have like a hazmat warning, red stripes. Nature's very, very informative if you care to look. And obviously from a clairvoyant perspective, we can see all that with plants. And that's how we learned what plants were safe to eat and which ones were black and red. Like you don't even have to try them when they're black and red. So you make sure the wise old ladies who've got good sight, doing that in the forest. So if we move from red to pink, that gives us, I don't know what it gives us from like technicolor perspective, but it feels like we're adding white to red to get pink, are we?
Essentially.
Yeah. So in other words, from red, we have a different, like a 90-degree angle where we can go off red without going into another, like into yellow or orange. We just kind of got this, because red is so crucial for us, no? And we see so
And I
many
find
hues.
red and the dark pink they're simultaneously, they're always together. You
Okay,
usually don't have one without the other,
right.
where the other colors, you can't say that.
Okay, well, what I would say is when something progresses further into something, dare I say, slightly more, necrotic, it goes dark pink, dark red, but they're also muddied, so they've lost their shine, and then you'll also have black in there. So that's where you're going when you go from pink to red. You're not going to purple. Well, there are
No.
purples, but they're muddy, dark, moody purples, like the sky can be in a storm. But yeah, so anyway, I mean, I probably will make some kind of graphic of this, you know, like so it makes sense. But I'm beginning to enjoy the idea of just sharing this recording with our colleagues so that they can actually hear us talking about all
Mhm.
these things. But anyhow, so we'll jump on pink now. You very cleverly have, well, pardon me, we are now honing in on shades of pink, which we're comfortable with. Rather than baby pink, we're going to say light pink. And rather than saying fuchsia, which I sometimes used to say, because I didn't want to say hot pink, I think we're going to say hot pink because it makes sense because it is hot pink.
Mhm.
And so we've got light pink, hot pink, and dark pink. That's what we're going to run with because by then you're going into the fuchsias and the kind of, you know, magentas and what have you. And so that technically would be, yeah, going into another direction off red. Okay, so can you now clarify what you mean by the pinks, where you witness pinks? Very kindly, you were going on about you see it with red. Let's hear you as a practitioner in the field, dare I say, working every day with this equipment. What are you seeing out there?
In terms of the shades of pink
Yeah, where
and where
pink
we're
and
seeing them.
yeah, pink
So
and her shades, exactly.
the pink, so the light pinks I primarily find are with the brighter, lighter biofield energy, generally in someone with a spiritual practice or a child. There's usually white, light and green and yellow around them. If we've got a light pink color, that's generally where I see the light pink come up. As we move into the reds and
Oh,
the darker pink,
oh, okay. I want a different word. I want to say bright pink.
bright pink as opposed to light pink when we see it in with yellows and greens, and then
Yeah, yeah,
when it's bright, healthy, and vibrant.
yeah, yeah. I think that makes sense, doesn't it? Because dark pink can then be not the opposite of light pink. It can be the opposite of bright pink.
Okay, so bright pink in with the yellows and greens.
Yeah, yeah. But also bright pink becomes the first pink we talk about. So maybe you can
Mhm.
go bright pink and then you see light pink to me. If someone's just broken their tooth, you know, at lunch on a stone over a tali, and their, you know, their jaw starts, that goes light pink, and then it goes more like a balloon blowing up, kind of stronger and stronger into those pinks. But so I like to think that light pink is our earliest warning of something.
Light pink, early warning.
Yeah, as opposed to maybe bright pink, which is more, as we could call it, growing pains or you know, energetic activity. Yeah. We're going to hone in further in the language. I'm
No,
comfortable
of
with
course,
us.
the pinks are really important because I think the rest of the colors all create the story around it, but the pinks are what shows us where that slower moving the light frequencies are, which gives us that's our conversation, right? That's our focal points when we go in to do the healings. I'm looking for those colors primarily.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
think
you're
this is
reminding
great.
me of my two children, and the reason why I came to Earth was to procreate, and their lovely little pink bottoms. When they were
So with
tiny, wee, of course. Go on.
no, as I say, with the and then moving into that darker pink color and the red, that's where you so that's where we're saying those are fresh
Yeah, yeah,
locations, right? I
yeah,
also find that is a lot of emotions in the chakra. We see a lot more of the dark pink and the red with emotions, where in the biofield viewer you see more, I think more the red in
yeah.
some of the areas. So
I'm getting a tug on my ear, and it's the word karmic. I think red and pink speaks to karmic issues in a way that other colors don't, because it's the breadboard, it's the chopping board, this color for all of these things, and I think that karmic stuff although it's not of that plane, I think that's where it emerges in the same way that emotional issues also emerge on the chopping board of red. Um, so yeah, one from one direction. Yeah, no, they're both from the same direction. They're both coming down into the material plane through. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Speak more about the pink then. So, what about hot pink?
Hot pink.
Yeah.
Hot pink is that's where I see like something's if we're hot pink, it's an issue that needs to be dealt with immediately.
Right.
And
Yeah.
excuse me, that's where we often see a lot of times that hot pink is in the third eye, migraines, on the throat. We see a lot of that for thyroid. So they're like urgent things that need to be dealt with. I think I see a lot of the hot pink, that frustration down the arms and into the hands, arthritis.
Okay.
I
Okay.
see.
Okay. So what you're saying is hot pink can be both emotional and related to the physical.
Yes.
That may be why it's on the chopping board the whole time. It's the color that works on both axes for us. It's the color where, oh wow, this guy's got emotional blockages. We call them shielding, but that blocking, that allowing the dross of wasted thoughts, which is basically silt, not to flow through us, and we just own this silty bags of drossy thoughts. That's gonna congest up, entire regions. But as you're saying, no, it's also shielding from some kind of like psychic, like I don't know, like someone's, misbehaved energetically, then up come the hot pink shields. Ah, they're the fastest um, tools we have to access. Not only is it for you, hey, we've got to deal with this, because remember, you're a healer, so you're looking at it from the other side. But from being there with your hot pink, it's because you can get those shields up the quickest. The red ones.
It's almost like your body's defense mechanism then.
Oh, well, that's what the biofield is. Yeah, it's a reef, and you got all these things that pop out and do shit, and we've forgotten it all. I mean, some of us
Yeah,
can
because you
say,
often see, especially across the heart chakra and across the chest, we often see that pink pooling over the red pooling for sure. And I find too, moving into the neck, it's usually really pink in through there where I'll see maybe a trace of the red, but I generally know that if I see the pink, there's something that needs to be dealt with.
yeah. Well, I agree. And I mean, I think the other thing is that perhaps it's worth saying is that when you do fundamental research, like we've done for 30 years now, you get to calibrate your process. And so the process for biofield viewer calibration was red pixels and green pixels. Now, you've got to appreciate there's millions and millions and millions of things going on, literally. But by choosing these two barometers or, spirit levels, we're able to calibrate our technology. Yeah. And so to that extent, you can take that a little further and go, well, therefore, if red pixels go less, if there's less red pixels, now that you've calibrated it, then that means something. What does it mean? Well, you've done tens of thousands of pictures. So if red pixels are going down, and all of our doctors and practitioners are noticing that as people get better, healthier, their red pixels become less. So this is then becomes a formula for anyone else. And so in the same way, green pixels increasing in an image, you just image analyze it with image J. That means effectively with red pixels going down and green pixels going up, that means I can say I've tested 500 people with this new homeopathic patch, and every single one of them has displayed this pattern of red pixels going down in number and green pixels going up in number, and therefore this product has efficacy. And we don't approve it, but just wow, look how much it does that. So red is a really important color for us on so many different levels, and it is important that it's there on the screen. Red is also the color that entities hide in. They make red like mist, vibrating. You ever seen vibrating spiders?
Mm-hmm.
Well, whoever's watching this, look up vibrating spiders. They're daddy long legses, and they spin like that black Sambo with his butter. And so they whip themselves into invisibility because they go into our blind spot. And I think, oh, creaky, I've forgotten what I'm talking about. That's what happens when you go off with the daddy long legs. Blind
Daddy long
spot.
legs, vibrating spiders,
Yeah, but
colors.
there is a relevance to it. I mean, I'm quite comfortable just to leave everyone just standing there going, what the heck was that? But okay, so yeah, I think it's entities. That's why I got damn well entity put a spell on me, probably. No, entities don't like us talking about this. Of course they don't. They only have one camouflage, and that's invisibility. Because we have carbon-based eyes, we're calibrated to look at carbon-based life forms. Unless we do the work and create lenses in our biofield, we can't see other life forms. Like some people have lenses already in their biofield because of work they've already done, and then they can see entities. That's why it's difficult this planet right now for those of us who can and those of us who can't, because modern medicine is such a fugazi, and yeah, we're quacks. Whack whack. That's all I can say. But I do need to plug in my power because otherwise you're going to disappear. So I'm going to just, oh yeah, the jackery, my dear. Would that be all right? That's all I really need is the jackery. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Gosh, we've got some team spirits flowing. Wow. I was trying to leave it to the very last minute, but we're still only on red, for God's sakes. Jeepers. Okay. Right. And how are we doing? Is that's not plugged in. That's weird. It should be working. Well, no, I mean, I think I just, oh, it is working. Everything brilliant. I'm charging, so we're all good. Okay, so I think we're good with red and pink now, apart from, yeah, I said entity. So, for example, I mean, it's a very, I don't know, delicate subject. Put it this way, I never talked about entities for 20 years. I was like, oop, no, we're not going there. Whatever for? There's enough
Well, and
going
it's
on
not something that you see
regularly.
often either. Yeah, like I think
Well,
there's a
that's
couple
exactly right.
times.
No, but that's my point, actually. That's why it's good to know what they look like, because you don't actually see them very often. And my, again, point is that a lot of people think that they have entities when someone's just told them they have, which is a completely different thing. If you have an entity, you bloody know it, I tell you.
The only time I think that I've ever come in contact with something even close with that is at a trade show, and where we're scanning so many people and they're coming through. There's a couple times where I wish I would have had you there to clarify and confirm, because you saw some anomalies that just,
Yeah.
some patterning that wasn't
Okay.
typical. But other
Okay,
than
well,
that,
my first red flag is red coal eyes. That's it. Like if you imagine a coal that is hot red, that's if their eyes are doing that. And this is not anything like the pink shielding we can see with people who are short-sighted or long-sighted or spend too much time on computer screens. That's why it's so good. You know the difference between red and pink. Pink is your stuff. Red can be, like I said, red can be calming. Red can be the cape that an entity wears. It's the lowest form of energy for them. It's like eagles soaring on thermals. It's just cheap energy for them being in the red zone. Because we can't see past red, no infrared. We can't see that. We're like, what? That's as far as we go. And we therefore we don't look through red. There's colors the other side of red, aren't there? Like on my my color chart where it goes red, scarlet, magenta, and then purple, because violet don't hang flapping in the wind. It curls into red with the sacred frequencies, which are purple, magenta, and scarlet. And we have to write that. Scarlet is a color red. Therefore, scarlet is that sacred frequency. Now, I have to say, part of the big spell of the last few hundred years, I hate to say the word they, red and scarlet, magenta, and purple have been used against us to fugazi us, like this. All the cardinals and bishops in the Holy Catholic Church wear scarlet because human beings didn't learn about scarlet in school. We learned about rainbows, and the colors that are on the back of the rainbow, we didn't learn about them. So they used against us. Same with magenta, and like all the purples, the ermines, the royals, they're all wearing purple now. Again, it's to fugazi you. You fall to the ground in front of purple, weirdly. And so when I see purple, magenta, and scarlet in anyone's biofield, I say you're a shaman. That's what you are, because you're operating on the. It's like, you're operating between words, between breaths, between our culture, and most importantly, and nowhere near our programming, because that's like graphite. It's like a tennis racket. It works on one dimension, but it really doesn't work on the other. You can hit a ball really well with a tennis racket sideways, but if you hit it gently on the ground, the thing can crumple. It's just the way all the atoms are pointing. Oh my word, where am I going? I've gone off on such wild tangents, but I obviously needed to say that because they're the sacred colors that segue into red and pink. And they also explain what you were saying earlier, is why is pink and red so important? It's because it's the junction. It's the oxygen. It allows for life. It literally is. And so everybody uses it. Entities, we just all use red. It's just like our surfboard. No, I said chopping board. I think I prefer that. The dinner plate. Okay, so yellow. I love yellow. I love to see yellow. I'm still going to let you go first, though. Come on, tell me about your yellowing experiences.
Yellow. So yellow, I love to see. I see yellow often in people who have some type of energy or spiritual or healthcare, self-care practice. A lot of holistic practitioners have a lot of yellow and green in their biofield. Children, I see a lot of yellow in children. After healing sessions, I see a lot of yellow. But I also see it, as we've talked about, with stress and the bandings with the biofield
Oh,
work.
oh my God. This document goes sideways. It goes red, orange, yellow,
Yes,
green.
red, orange, yellow,
And
green.
I'm
Yeah.
going down. Okay, you know what? Let's go down anyway, because it's just switching it up. I'm liking this because I was going yellow, yellow. Where's orange? I was going, why? I was going, what have we done with orange? But I'm liking this, so let's keep at it. And then what's brilliant, Tanya, I have to make a point here, is that for any of our colleagues who are interpreting biofield viewer images, or if you are holding your phone and you've just taken a soul mirror image, or even a petal picture of your animal, have a good bedside manner, even with yourself. I mean, sure, X means something, but it also means something fabulous and fantastic. And so dwell on the fabulous and fantastic first. And Tanya just did that. Like my mind is going yellow as people who think too much. And, it's like people have got all the way up to the top of Everest, but they just aren't going to do that last 5 miles. What's the matter with them? And that's because I don't know. Yeah. But I just really need everyone to know that we start with its beauty, its raison d'etre, how it harmonizes your field, these colors, and why it makes that an individual special in a certain way. They're bright, whatever. And then also we can speak about what it also means is that something else. So we're going to get there, but I just wanted to say
Well,
that.
do you know what I find too, Thor, is with the bedside manners when we're dealing with our clients and we're working with them in these sessions, that if we have to be very mindful of the words and the way we describe this, because I've seen it where if I go in to deal with something, say karmic or emotional, people actually start shielding in the session,
Yeah, yeah.
which can create, it's their energy is almost playing games with the camera because, we're picking up on some, some very personal
Okay.
things.
Okay, Tanya. That's why Biofield Viewer is training wheels for psychics. You're seeing that. You're getting cued by that. You're recalibrating the strength of your commitment, the focal point, the dance around optimization around rather than disease. Absolutely. We don't necessarily want to trigger them into a crisis of any kind. But at the same time, if they're that susceptible, then witnessing that may be an important part of the healing journey that you're going to take them on. So everything I see, I notice. And obviously, the actual measure of good biofield interpretation is whether someone has side effects or not. Because if you've got it absolutely right, you hit the bull on the eye, something, and then there's no wobble. Wobble is side effects, wobble is healing crisis. If you're focused, this is why I say this is the age of precision guided healing. With our technology and others, we've got the lights on. We can see that wobble. We can deliver exactly. And as you also know from biofield research, the gentlest of triggers is the one that triggers the cascade to optimization. And so again, all these clues are coming from us working with 5, 10, 15 people and see, well, that would work, but wow, he reported having a sore back the next morning. But now, I'm much more gentle, much more gentle. Just one thing. I'm gonna do one thing and intend all those other things are just gonna, like the plumber is like with his machine unblocking the drain. But once he's got the blockage out, he stops that machine. He goes upstairs, he turns on all the faucets, and he lets the flow, the natural gravitational flow, do all the process of eliminating the toxins. Otherwise, you have another type of crisis, which is when you're eliminating so many toxins, you get sick from that. So this is why we're gentle and we trigger this thing gently. Toxic releases can kill people. I mean, in terms of getting off American psychiatric drugs, if you don't taper that process, so that's what we're talking about is tapering the care. And for example, if I see red legs, red, like leg warmers from the 80s, I don't, nothing said. I don't say anything else. I say, please, my friend, go walk in the forest barefoot for a week, come back, and we can do the next thing. So red dictates that as well,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry, yellow, gosh. Anyway, I'm sure you guys are enjoying this. Yellow.
No, so as you were saying too, yellow is, if I look at yellow, I see yellow in a lot of executives,
Right.
business owners, things like that as well. Yeah, the over mentalizing. And in today's world, I think a lot of us over mentalize about a self-care practice. So we do see a lot of yellow.
Yeah.
Yellow is also found when people overexpose their cameras. We see it goes up to a yellow. So I like yellow, but yeah, yellow creates the conversation of, your own personal self-care and what is your mental because yellow will also generally in the biofield we'll see a lot of that speckling and the banding as well when there's a lot of yellow.
When I made the trailer for this talk, this discussion, I did say that in various instances, because our lab was in India, we literally saw thousands and thousands of people. And that really is an important part of observing biofield range sets. There was one fellow who came in who was perfectly healthy, but he was just with his family, wanted to see his energy field. And he had yellow boxing gloves, right? And I said to him, that's so weird. I normally see yellow around the head because it's associated with kind of supermentalizing. And he said, well, I'm a surgeon. And, you know, I project my mind into my hands. And I'm like, he's like, I'm doing brain surgery 12 times a day. I can get that, you know, like that's where my yellow is. And, you know, it actually turned out to be true. I got to see other surgeons who also had yellow hands. But I have to say, it was quite weird because I saw Alex's hands the other day without Biofield Viewer, and they were all yellow as well. But I wasn't using the Biofield Viewer, and it was a very amazing color yellow. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, my perspective on yellow is, you know, I call it base camp, and you know, you'll hear me say this, and it's just one of these funny little things that I came up with, but it really is a good analogy. And I mean, base camp is in Everest base camp. I mean, think about it. It takes a couple of days to hike up to Everest base camp. I mean, you've already done all of your homework. You're spiritually sound, you know, you're an A. You're an energetic A, balanced, symmetrical, perfect, fabulous. You're an A. But you're now loitering with intent rather than focusing your intent because you're hanging out in all these tents, all these empty oxygen bottles. You need to choose the day when you're going to climb your Everest. And so many people get stuck, vacillating. You know, they understand divinity is everything, but they just cannot make the jump that they're divine, they're a goddess, or they're a god. And that I just find that incredible. It's like if everything is divine, surely you're divine, 100%. Yeah, but I'm also horribly human. I have a mortgage to pay, and I'm going to think about that and stop breathing for a while. You know, that's yellow. So yellow to me is like it's a disappointment, even though it's A grade. And maybe I'm just harsh on people. Maybe I just want total enlightenment for everyone. But the reality is that if you're already at yellow, you can, it's just a few breaths to, I don't know what to call it. Optimization is the word that I use. Yeah. Yeah. Optimize. And so yellow is a crucial color. It's so important. All right, sweetheart, we're bringing metal one. If yellow is a challenge, then yellow becomes a challenge where I say to someone, okay, I'm seeing so much yellow in your field. That means, well, I asked them, are you a big thinker? I've never had somebody say no. A million times people have accepted that they over mentalize if they have got yellow in their field. This is just a trait. But unfortunately, and this is why it's so important, when we see yellow in the biofield, it means that they're basically not breathing. Because when I think about it, if you're thinking, you're not, you're off like with the guards looking at inventions and, you know, wondering what the clock's doing and whatever you think about, but you're not really in the body when you're thinking. And this is why thinking is such a, you know, it's a short, it's not the dog's bollocks that people think it is. Pardon me. Yeah, thinking is yeah, thinking is something that human beings do when they're vacillating. If you're really confident in your knowing, I don't think you think. I think you just speak and you just consciously do, and you're tuned into everybody else. So you don't need to think about what they might be thinking because you know. There's just a lot less thinking going on than is needed. And definitely the way to balance this out, and there to me is only one way, and that is breath work. And so if ever I see a lot of yellow in someone's biofield, and to be honest, whether it's bright yellow or light yellow or dark yellow, I still absolutely encourage them to breathe. And that means I say, go find some groovy breathwork person who inspires you. And then the other thing I say to yellow people is, if you don't know the bounds of breath from a motoring perspective, or car mechanics, as I like to say, you're stuck in first gear. So first gear covers the base chakra, the navel chakra, the heart chakra, the throat chakra. But if you're stuck here with yellow, you don't have all those other gears. Well, I'm kind of making an analogy, but I can't say that's 100% true. But yeah, if we're showing yellow, then you're just not. It's like you're the best human. I like to use the word muggle from
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Yeah, if someone's not prepared to do the spiritual work at all, and they just threw the baby out with their Christian or whatever values they threw out, then to me they're a muggle. I don't know what the real word is, but I say muggle. And so yellow is the highest the muggle's ever going to get, because he's just not prepared to. He's not prepared to let go. He's not prepared to digest his ego. He's not prepared to open his eye. These kind of realities are there. And so all of the other aspects of movement, because remember, maybe another time people will see my talk about the chakras and the dimensions. But from my perspective, if someone's consciousness, their kundalini, has, if they're able to control it, so this is not subconscious kundalini, this is mastery of kundalini. Once they do that, they're able to operate with this sports gearbox, which is the equivalent in a normal car of realizing you have all these other amazing ratios of pace and breath, and that means you can see things because you're not in first gear. There's so many things that the poor muggles are stuck with, and the biggest problem is they're stuck in first gear. Gosh, I'm probably thinking this section of my color talk with Tania is not quite so colorful, but anyway, I think it's still relevant. Okay, let's go down and jump on blue.
All right. So blue, I like blue and green together personally. And generally they're often seen together. From what you've taught me is, blue and green, those are ideal frequencies. Those are the
Yeah.
mid-range. We like to see those. When we see blue and green, we're happy.
We're happy for them. Okay,
We're
so
happy for
where do
them.
we see blue? Because we don't see blue. It's like orange. We don't always see blue. Where do we
Well,
see
okay, so
blue?
that is good that you bring that up because I do see there's two shades of blue. There's a lighter blue, and which is almost more like a sky blue, and then there's that darker blue, which we see with either darker pigmented skin, the blue that we see when we're scanning animals, that royal dark blue, which is often so the darker blue I see often associated with red and black,
Yeah.
and I
This
either
is
see
really
that.
good. Ow, the flies here bite. Do your flies bite?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Man, these tiny little things, and they come up and they take a chunk out of you like a pike or something. Sorry. It really is quite annoying. No way. I think our compost system needs upgrading. That's really where we're at. But
Mm,
so blue, I loved what you just said about blue. That was fantastic.
thank you.
Yeah. And so in relation to animals, can you expand on that?
So, in relation to animals, we often see, as you were talking about earlier, seeing that red when we're using Biofield on animals to show us. The blue is generally it's encapsulating or it's around it, and then we often see that dark black around with it in animals. Um, Darker pigmented skin or artifact, we often see that dark royal blue color again with red and black. that could show us that there's poor circulation or there's something going on. I've seen it around people with disease, inactive disease of some sort. I see that dark royal blue and the red and the black together. But that light blue is beautiful. The light blue we see with the green, and often yellow is associated with it. Sometimes we see that the violet color with it, but blue is nice. Blue is I'd say is a good mid range.
Right. So I would also add then that blue to me, well, I mean, I give someone a pass when their throat is blue, when they're, and ideally there's a sense of a chakra being blue at the throat, so the throat chakra being blue. It isn't always blue, but to me, when I see it, I say you speak for divinity. I mean, that's what I say. That's what it means to me, is that someone in pure resonance with why they're here and what they're supposed to be doing. They're not like confused. As you know, a lot of people are confused. Whereas when you really know why you're here, even from like, oh, I'm a singer, I'm a yogi teacher, whatever it is, it just, your place and you speak your truth. It's got a lot about speaking your truth, which again is weird, that a speed of light, a sort of little cut out speed of light, faster light than red, has this amazing kind of, carrier wave for spirit. But that's what I'm saying. Don't be under any illusions. And so blue is very important. It's also the gateway color. It's like muggles don't tend to go through blue, like people don't like to swim or whatever, like the big ocean, that scares them. Blue is on the other side. For them, their comfort's in cozy red and oranges and yellows, the solar plexus being yellow. And we tend to, if we're safe in the body and in the material plane and with our pensions and our mortgages, we're just dancing around these slower colors. Actually, that's the reality. But by the time we're showing blue in our biofield, this is someone who's on a quest. They're journeying. If it's only blue is the fastest color, then they're new to it. Then it's just like, I say sing in the shower, like get into your sound groove, because they're the stepping stone. Those notes are the stepping stones for Jacob's ladder. That's where you're going. You can either take footprints in on the xylophone of light, or you can use those, squidgy black things at the bottom of the notes. Yeah. So I'm totally excited when I see blue in someone's biofield. It's just, yeah. And I mean, I remember I said shaman. If I see purples and magenta, especially, and scarlet. Scarlet's a weird one, but yeah, scarlet flares, kind of. That's definitely accompanied by blue also. If I ever see those three other colors, there's blue in the subspace, because, yeah, I mean, I was earlier looking for, I just need to remember this fellow's name. Oh, crikey. I'm good. That's so funny. Gadiali. Didn't get Gadiali. I mean, I have to say, when you get older, you've got this incredible, all these people that and you've sort of resources in those library books, but you just got to put your head around them to pull out the spelling or the thing. Oh gosh, that's not his name, is it? Crikey. I'm gonna have to do some work on that. Oh, I could do it another way. It's called spectrochrometry. Spectrochrome. Have you ever heard me say that word?
No.
Okay, good. Spectrochrometry. Okay, so that's, yeah. I just embarrassingly. His name's Gudiali, and I don't know how I flummoxed it. Dinshaw, and I looked up Dinesh, which is his son's name, I think. Okay, so yeah, so if you look up spectrochrometry right now and look at images, you'll see all these wild, crazy cameras, which I was lucky enough to work with when I was a kid. But what I want you to do is find one of these charts, which you can see. If you look up spectrochrometry, you'll also see one of these charts. And I know a lot of people have got all kinds of different ideas about colors, and like there's Babbitt, there's so many different schools of colors and what have you. But my work has this map has been reliable. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So for example, have you got that Star of David graph up yourself, Tanya, on your computer?
I do actually.
Right, so you see how purple, magenta, and scarlet are underneath the range of sight of the rainbow. The rainbow goes red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But then this chart also claims lemon and turquoise. And they are also going to be in our new manual to lemon and turquoise. Because I don't know if you've ever been, lost in space looking at a prism, like a sort of a lady's huge diamond on an aeroplane, you get these red, or you can see lemon and you can see turquoise, very different from, especially turquoise, between green and blue. And I challenge anyone to say you can't, because they're actual colors. They may be hidden from muggle speak. Muggles get traffic lights and 7 colors. That's just how it is, guys. You want to step to the plate, then welcome to the other colors. And it's important, because if you look at some of these charts, you realize each element's ray is that color. So you could say that carbon is a ray of frozen yellow. That's something we would say in esoteric speak. Ray is frozen carbon is frozen yellow color. Why not? That's how we look at it. Okay, so we're going down nicely. I think we've said enough about blue. Let's go to violet.
Okay, so violet is something that I generally
I sometimes see blue in people's hands associated with things like neuropathy. There's this sense that the energy is all moving so fast that it's like vibrating, it's traumatized. Yeah. I'd like to follow up on that suggestion, but anyway, pardon me. Violet is?
No, violet is it is the fastest moving frequency. However, I find that I often see it paired with orange, violet, and then green. Those 3 are simultaneous, which is sort of interesting that we've got, you know, 3 different light frequencies all working together.
Yeah,
And
well, I think your color associations thing, which you're noticing, is another whole class deeper into color sets and the color banding. And to be honest, you're freewheeling here and you're saying these amazing things, like you notice blue with green, you're noticing yellow with the white. That type of thing is really important for practitioners as opposed to people who want to do color therapy. So I really am appreciative of this, because they're going to hear this and then they're going to notice those things, and that's really
well, I
what
think it's important too that we don't look at this as the same color as chakra association, because while there may be some similarities, it's not what the chakra colors mean. This is what biofield means. And I think that's important too, because I think a lot of people associate, like blue. We were talking about blue being with the throat chakra, but blue shows up in a lot of other ways as well.
Yeah,
And so I think
when you speak to clairvoyance, certainly I have over the years. they say a lot of people's biofields are blue. It's a kind of standing color for the biofield. And I go to them, well, why do you think that is? And they go, well, because it's basically the muscles working. It's like they're kind of like in in muggledom, they're just in blue. So yeah, they're at the they're hovering where they can. Violet, you're right, is a completely different set of values. And as I said before, when I see these rich, fast colors like violet, purple, I just say shaman. I literally touch people on their feet and I go, well, I don't really know what this is, what it means, but you're just, you're one of these crystal people who's been invited onto this planet to actually do something, you're equipped for getting on with it. I'm just going to turn my camera off for a second so I can slurp my cold coffee with grace. But yeah, what that's what I think about Violet. I don't see it that often that I I dwell on Violet. It's more that people, once they get to Violet, they pop straight to white anyway. Violet doesn't hang around very long.
And it's not a
Violet,
predominant color to follow throughout the body either. Again, that brings us back to our reds, our blues, our yellows. I find violet is, yeah, it's an associative color. I take note of it where it falls in the biofield, if it's close around the person or if it's in the outer rings.
mhm.
Is it thick? Is it thin? For me, violet is just one of those things I take note of. I don't focus on.
But it's funny because what we've written in this paragraph is exactly right. It's like we see Violet in those meditative types who, you know, I did a study. Rewind. I supported a study that a very brilliant man called Jeffrey Tarrant did for the pranic healers, the pranic healing people. And it was on the twin hearts meditation. And it was so brilliant, I have to say, but it taught us something really, really interesting, which we call the Mesa effect. And this relates very strongly to Violet, because what we see in the Mesa effect, when you're doing a research study like we do, the control group in a meditation study are people who obviously are lifelong meditators. They're the ones who are already like knocking it out the park. And so we can measure 10 of these guys and their biofields are perfect, symmetrical, ideal tensegrity and brightness, and often a lot of white. And violet, absolutely, this is a sign. You don't really see violet with white, to be honest. It's kind of like white implies a leap. I call it the quantum leap, where we actually go from one state into another, a phase shift, if you like. And so the Mesa effects tells us that when the novices start their meditations, they also really change a lot over the first week. And they join their mentors and their meditation guides really quickly at this violet at the top of that chart or popping into white within a week. And then they're all on a mesa. You can study them for 12 months and they'll all stay in this symmetrical white state. So it's, in other words, what we can extrapolate from this is that all of these normal color spectrum patterns and symmetries that we've seen individuals, if they do something, some kind of spiritual practice, some kind of qigong, some kind of meditation, some kind of anything, within a week, they are getting the same level of benefits that if you'd been doing it for your whole life. And so then you get to maintain that. It's really not a bad deal. I watch these phone ads and the guy's going, oh, I've had this company's phone for 10 years. And the lady next door goes, well, I've only had it since yesterday. Yeah, that's great. You both got the phone. but who's going to make sure their phone is still working in 2 years' time? You know, it's not cracked and leaking. You know, this is the point. And so, yeah, violet is to me a happy place where I'm seeing these adepts getting to violet within a week from red, from doing this spiritual practice. And then if they really integrate the violet, they become white. Yeah. So it's where it says associated with higher vibrations, meditations. I don't really like to see the word etc. in this, but I don't think we need to do that. If we transcribe this, we're going to have a little bit more than 3.5 lines. Okay, we're going to save black to last. Let's go back up to orange, because we also have some very nice notes from some of our colleagues. And I'm going to have to go there quickly and see what was said, because at least a couple of people chimed in. Because remember, I used orange as the color to first discuss this program. So, yeah, I mean, okay, there it is. It's that 17 comments one, isn't it? Like I said, what's orange? And then, oh, look at my damn thing. Oh, at least this is touch. Come on, let's have you back up, please. Oh, I see the comment. Okay. Orange. Yeah, someone wrote courage and then warmth, inclusive. Well, that's a little bit orange. Gut takes the reaction, trauma, sense of freedom. These are a little bit more abstract than I'm looking for. And then, oh, hang on a minute. This is one of our actual, frontline colleagues here. I'm going to take this a bit more seriously. Rising of strength and courage and inner light, like the sunrise, digestion, own abode, sovereignty, both masculine and feminine. So it's uniting. Okay. And then beginnings of Kundalini. I mean, all I can say is that orange I tend to see, in the belly. But it's really not a very common color. But I have to say, no, I can't say it's not a common color, because it's the color we see when I see that really bright orange. It's almost like gold. I see that with green, and I say they're my favorite colors, apart from white. So yeah, orange is very significant, and I like what she's saying here: strength and courage, inner light, rising, digestion. And then this other thing I totally agree with: beginnings of Kundalini to nurture. And then this thing about both masculine and feminine, so uniting. So, I think and this is one of our colleagues, Marie Strange in New Zealand, who's been working with the Biofield for years. So, I'm happy to kind of, if there's anything that we haven't already got in our paragraph, I think I'm really glad, because anything else that we've seen, courage and gut, are both encapsulated in that.
So what I've taken note, I did some yesterday in preparation for this conversation today. I went through a series of biofield imaging, just random selection.
Oh, good.
And I noticed that orange shows up in thin bands in the outer ring of the biofield with someone with a blue and green sort of overall energy field.
Wonderful.
I also noticed that if it was going to show up in something that was a little more dull or muddied in color, it always showed up, as I was mentioning earlier, violet, orange, green, always in that order: violet, orange, green in the outer rings. But I did take note that on a lot of my before and after imaging of my clients, things that were red or dark pink after became orange and green.
Yes, exactly. Orange is a transitional color out of something. Very much so. That's where courage comes into it. And I think I mean, if I wasn't clear before, I totally agree with you. The only time I'm talking about this orange, gold, green combo is in the outer field. To see it on the body surface, it implies change. And as you said, it almost,
I like that change.
Recovery as well.
Change and recovery. I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's go to green because we can always come and add. I mean, I'm just comfortable that we're actually getting in what we want to get in. Okay.
No, this is great. And it's good review for me too to really ensure that I know my colors. So green, I love green. Green's probably my favorite out of all of them. Green, blue, yellow, we often see together. Literally green is go, it's balance, it's healing. I really like green. It makes me happy. And I like the people that have green in their biofield and around their biofield generally are pretty healthy. Again, that vibrant green, we'll see muted greens with muted colors, which might mean that there's something going on. Um, but yeah, green, I love the green color. I love seeing it in the chakra colors and the centers. I love seeing the symmetry and balance with the green and the yellow. But yeah, green and yellow and white are often found together in really high vibration. Green, yellow, blue are often found together. So yeah, that's my take on green. I like green.
I mean, brilliant. One thing I would add is that when we see green, if it's bright enough, we can see the grain of the green, like the grain of a tree, or when you see two mosquito nets together and they move, and you see these very bizarre patterns, sort of geometric patterns. We see those bizarre patterns in the green because it's bright enough for us to see that, and it's below the range. It's in the sweet spot for our visible spectrum. So I invite people to look at biofield images and to actually go and look at the green parts, because you may see some structure in there, some patterns, and there is healthy patterns within the colors as well, which we see when someone's biofield is nice and bright. Um, yeah, I mean, green is also the color of presence. So I say to people when I see a lot of green in their field, are you a healer? Because the only real prerequisite for being a healer is being able to be present. And that is green at the heart chakra. Interestingly, there's all kinds of different funny old wives' tales, aren't they? When you're yellow with the fever, and green is often associated with envy. And it's interesting when you look at the sort of green rays emanating from people. If their intent is pure and that they're just unconditionally emanating their love, which is the green, it's bright. But if this if if the person is like happy for you, that they sort of oh wow, you've got a really beautiful car, John, I really like your car, well done, mate, I know you've worked hard for that thing and now you don't have to get the bus anymore. But instead of it just being that unconditional appreciation, it's like, well, John, I really love your car, everything, well done you, but I want it.
Mm.
And it's the I wanting it that lowers the vibration of the green and muddies it. And so we can see that as well. And so I can be quite challenging to people if I see muddied green in their biofields. I'm like, man, you're 1 degree off from being a perfect, kind, loving being, and you've fallen for the programming shtick. You can't blame everyone, but it's all in there in the green. That kind of how much you've fallen for the shtick.
Well, and I mean, greens they're mid-frequency, right? So that's what I love about it is that,
Yeah,
seeing it and then being able to see. But I like that the fact that green, its brightness, its saturation will allow us to see whether we're looking at a healthy biofield or
yeah,
an unhealthy biofield. That green really, it it will change color a lot
yeah,
from that bright, vibrant to muted,
yeah.
and we see it in pretty much almost all the biofields have some sort of green in them.
And we said, remember just now, more green pixels, healthier biofield, more
Mhm.
red pixels, less healthy. We
Yeah.
know that green and red are giving us that, even though there's millions of colors, those are the two we tagged. We invented the machine, we can do whatever we like, but we tagged and calibrated it with green and red. And so it's crucially important. And interestingly, if you study the waves of that chart that I showed just now, the spectrochrometry chart, you'll notice strangely that the green is opposite magenta. And so, what that implies, and this is really important from an esoteric perspective to help shake off the programming plug of modern education, is to realize that colors are not a spectral range on an electromagnetic spectrum, how we're taught it, like a ruler. They're not. It's spiraling. The electromagnetic spectrum is not a ruler or a protractor, it's a spring from which things emerge. Okay. In the same way, the DNA is a spring. So that's how magenta and green are the same frequency, but with green, the wavelength is going out, the unconditional love. And with magenta, it's coming back. Hence magic, hence spells, hence conjuring, hence drawing in. And the same with all the other colors on that spectrum that, yellow and violet, orange and indigo, turquoise, they all have their opposites. And
Mhm.
and
Well,
they
and
speak.
that's what's fascinating about this particular chart is that's exactly what it is. We've got the Merkaba, the Star of David shapes, we've got, but we're also mixing in your yellow, blue, magenta, so our cyan, yellow, and magenta, and then we've got that all of those are showing that, yeah, when those mix with that, it will create the other, the plus and the minus.
Yeah.
So I think
I
it's
mean, the thing is,
fascinating.
it's just this is when you're already psychic and when you're already clairvoyant, these are the charts you like. If you don't have those things, you go for other charts. I don't know, why there's a difference, but science programming dictates linearity, and esoteric understanding is all toroidal and spirals and springs. And to be honest, it makes a lot more sense to us, but we go along with the straight ruler because you get spanked on the bottom if you don't go along with it. We get that. Okay, so indigo. Well, look at that. Indigo rarely seen in the biofield when predominant advanced intuition and psychic abilities. Well, that's a bit of a cheap shot. I mean, I remember filming a boy, and he actually looked like Harry Potter in I was either in Hong Kong or Singapore. I'm going to say Singapore. Yeah, I was in Singapore, and we were doing this training course in this huge building quite high up. And all of these different people were invited as subjects for the students to scan. And so this boy came along, and he was branded as autistic, but he wasn't autistic. He was completely psychic. He was totally psychic. He knew exactly what was going on, poor fellow. He was like a cat. He just like had to pretend he was a normal boy. But I could see this indigo lens in his biofield, like a trumpet coming out from his third eye, wider
Wow.
and bigger. So that is what is indigo. And if you don't have that going on, we ain't going to see it in the biofield because it only appears to make the lens for your third eye. That's what it is. It's a lens for your third eye.
So just to clarify and confirm then, so indigo we only see in the third eye in the biofield as
Well,
well, or
no,
will
no, 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 because in the same way you do your groupings of seeing blue and green, and then I say golden, orange, and green, the reality is that tribe of secret colors, purple, magenta, and scarlet, are often accompanied with blue, violet, and indigo. So
Mhm.
if any, that's why I say shaman. I just wow, they've already popped their lid. It's like the genie's out of the bottle with these guys. So they know what they're doing. For me, it's just yeah. And so what am I saying? Their whole body is going to be blue and violet. It's
Because
very
I think that's one color I haven't seen a lot of. Like even yesterday when I was going through and reviewing, I see a lot of the violet, but the indigo I was having trouble distinguishing indigo. So
right.
maybe that's
Well,
something we should even pull some examples for people who are watching this so that because if so that we can differentiate the difference between violet versus indigo and the
yeah,
blues so that
yeah. Well, you know how they make indigo in India?
It's from a bug, no?
Well, I mean, no, I think it's from a fruit. Like it may, I think the red, the scarlet from the army jackets of old was was a cactus or a bug, the juice in a bug or something. Yeah, but the indigo, I've been to these villages in Rajasthan where they have indigo dyes. Indigo is jeans, the color of denim. But it's also it's kind of like a blueberry to me. That's kind
Mm.
of indigo. It's very specific. It's like the range of sight is just one octave in hundreds of octaves. In the same way, indigo is only needed in that one octave. So that's why that's why we're having this long conversation. It's not just
Well,
red.
maybe something even just to accompany this updated color reference chart is maybe showing the biofield colors and then showing so that we can indicate so everyone, all of us users know what we're talking about, the difference between, regular pink versus dark pink versus hot pink,
Yeah,
indigo versus dark blue,
yeah.
and really just sort of bring those out, scarlet
Yeah,
versus like
I
a
think
red.
we might make a palette that
Yes,
people
that would
can
be
like
brilliant.
hold up. Yeah, but all these things are very flexible because everyone is uniquely unique, and so we're talking about sort of generally because there's tangerine, there's mandarin, there's satsuma, there's so many different hues of orange.
Well, that's it. But it's also with the screens, and we're using it in different ways. I find, the Soul Mirror will show colors a little differently than the Biofield Viewer, depending on, taking an iPhone versus a computer camera. So I think it's just calibrating in the different environments and screen resolutions and things so that we're all on the same page. If maybe we can identify and say these are the colors, then people can use that chart, and whatever it shows
Yeah,
up on their
yeah, yeah,
screen will be
yeah,
their
yeah.
right resolution.
Yeah, and I'd even like to encourage AI to go through databases and actually find these colors for us. I mean, if I had to go find 100 indigo cases in my files, I'd rather send Grok in there than go do it myself. But yeah, I mean, totally, this is brilliant. Okay, so let's discuss white because
White.
yeah, white is a color we see both just when we're getting our environment set up and then in really several other circumstances. You again start us off, Tanya, because you're there
Okay,
with it.
so if I see white initially off the bat before I've even photographed a client, I know that my camera's probably overexposed and I need to calibrate my cameras.
Right.
So first and foremost, white isn't something you want to see right when we open up the biofield viewer and we have our camera on. We want that yellow and that egg yolk with the light pink around it, that's what we're going for, is the yolk for our baseline. Now, when a client steps into the frame, if it blows out white, I always call it blowing out is the term I like to use. It's probably, or you probably have a better word that I should be using to articulate, but I look at it as they're blowing it out as the exposure. And I
I
often
say whiting out.
whiting out. Okay. And so
We're blowing out. Yeah.
I see that in people who are very, very spiritual, or right after a healing session. A lot of my clients, the before and afters will capture their biofield. And then after they're showing that white with the light green lines in the background.
Yeah.
But white can also show up if there's something going on in your body. It can actually, I think, is it a malignancy, or as you refer to it as a whiteout, it can actually indicate that there's something else going on that's a little more severe in the body as
Yeah.
well.
Well, it's because, for example, in oncology, we know that tumors do this process where they kind of take over your vascularization system. It begins with I think it's atherosclerosis or something, but it's a process whereby tumors kind of plug in and hotwire your system. And in doing so, that changes everything. So in terms of a thermal image, we will see that as hotter, yeah, red,
Mhm.
because of this thermal effect of this vascularization. But in a biofield viewer, it's more analogous with, you know, using all your resources in one go, you know, like dropping the big bomb, taking antibiotics. You know, when you're hitting something with white, you're blasting it to trip that cancer or whatever else, you know, because we make these colors, they come from us. You know, we're broadcasting these harmonics in various points in our field. So the white, I call it the last chance cafe. It's when we're blasting something to shift it from even necrosis or malignancy. Yeah. So yeah, we see it. We can see it on the breast if someone has a really malignant tumor, and we're not seeing the tumor. Obviously, we're seeing the biofield of the tumor. But yeah, that's in very rare cases, and it's asymmetrical as well. I mean, you're going to see it like in a spot. Now, you know, like some of us have entities that are welcome, you know, like they're more like unborn children, or like helpers, like my mother has a couple of them, and they're white. So they're also white. You can see them as white. Like one time we filmed one of the Rinpoches who taught the Dalai Lama, and obviously even Rinpoches don't know what our equipment can do. So we kind of caught this guy out. We didn't catch him out. I mean, I don't mean it like that, but he had all these white entities flying around his head when the camera first went on. And when they realized that we could see them, like the other people in the room, they all dived into his head. Like little fishes. Yeah. So it's not inappropriate, but again, like, you know, it's rare because entities we're not, yeah, entities are really like alcoholics, organ transplant, people who the fabric of their biofield has been shattered, like crack cocaine, fentanyl, that blasts the biofield so entities can rush in. But most people's biofields have evolved to protect themselves from entities. Yeah. And they came up with this silly word virus, you know, which isn't a real thing. Apparently, viruses don't exist. But what really they're trying to do is describe kind of what entities do, I guess, in a kind of muggle way. So white, it's so important. White. The other thing about white is that I would say white emerges when someone stops mentalizing. You actually see the yellow pixels becoming white. And so for someone who's really saintly, but they mentalize a lot, we'll see the white pixel, literally pixels, little tiny white squares within the yellow. And we won't see them anywhere else. We only see them emerging from the yellow because white is the brightest. And therefore, if we're going backwards, yellow is the second brightest. And so if somebody's brightening their field, their amplitude is turning up because the symmetry is improving, we're going to see more white emerging pixel by pixel out of the yellow. Or they're already fabulous, like you've been describing, and they're shining white. Those people, I just put my hands together and I say thank you, because it used to be 1 in 100, and now, you know, maybe depending on where you are, anywhere between 1 in 10 and like, you know, like 4 in 10. You know, like that many people on this planet have realized what they are. That's why there's hope, you know. I mean, we have witnessed over 35 years with all of our work that people are getting brighter. Yeah. And a higher percentage of people are becoming prismatic, and they can, you know, they can do all the colors. Anyway, I think we're going to just have a little chat about black. Black is definitely the color of depletion. I'm surprised how often I see black pixels because they may be just pixels. You may have to zoom in into a murky area and go, oh my God, there's actually black pixels in here.
I find black shows up with red and that royal, the dark blue. That's where red shows up. If you're gonna see, or black shows up. If and like I've yet to have a case of necrotic, like a dead tissue. Not to say that won't cross my path one day, but in my practice, um, I don't have anything like that. But I do see it where there's maybe poor circulation. In the legs, I'll see the black, the red, the blue.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
and
mean,
and cancer, I've seen that with a tumor. I've seen the black, the red, the blue.
right. Yeah. Okay. So what I would say is that it's difficult to see black unless you're using the biofield viewer live because black can blink. And so unless you've like got the thing on live and you're watching their biofield, you may not see it, which is interesting. But I've seen black throat chakras before with people who,
Really?
yeah, who've got like, like the chronic, they've been, they've been diagnosed with something chronic, yeah. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this case. I was with John and we were filming this guy who had a tumor in his spine, right? And it was throbbing black and red like a worm. It was the weirdest thing, but it was black, red, and it was exactly where his tumor was. And so I don't know, I just, yeah, like black is a color of, you know, it's like, again, like I said, the white is the last chance cafe. Well, the black is the last hour in the last chance cafe where you're almost, vacillating between regeneration and full remission, spontaneous remission. So it's not the end of the road, black, but it's bloody close. Yeah. And then, of course, we've been seeing some of our colleagues speaking to black has just been really low energy.
Low
So,
energy. Yeah, I think
yeah.
you've got
So
depression in here.
yeah, so when someone is black, the whole of them is like the whole body is black, the face. And I mean, other things aren't, their biofield isn't, but just their face and their neck is all black. That means just really depleted energy. You see, black absorbs, no?
Well, it is. It's the absorption of all color.
Right. So the point is that if the biofield is black, then they're just really in that they've calibrated themselves to be absorbing every cosmic ray they can get. Whereas white, you're brimming with light, so you can share it.
Well, this is excellent. I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and I'm excited to go through here and update the notes and maybe some new color charts and things like that for us to circle back and have a broader discussion, maybe with a few more colleagues and
Yeah,
John.
yeah, exactly. I want to get the physics right now before we deliver. I mean, to be honest, I want to share this as it is with our students because I think it's juicy and I think they deserve to hear it, especially all the ones who were invited who just haven't been able to make it today. So there's that. But absolutely, we want to absolutely tighten it all up so that we're not showing this chart. We're showing our new 3-page chart,
Hmm.
which includes everything we've discussed today. But also the point that really needs to be understood about colors and biofield viewer is because biofield viewer is a light meter, which means that it's observing the graduations of light intensity or amplitude, and therefore the colors relate to brightness, not to the specific range within the octave that people understand as the visible spectrum. Because I would argue that's something we've been taught by people who don't actually know what they were teaching us, strangely. And so when we have someone like Alex, who's now 7 years into collaborating with us and working with Biofield Viewer, who understands quantum physics, string theory, you know, dare I say, cosmology, and is very well versed in all the different traditions from the East, from the Oriental to the Occidental, we used to say. You know, he's got that. And I think it's sensible for him and John, as you say, to come on a call with us and clarify what I've just said in lay terms, but actually bulletproof physics. This is why that, instead of, and you see, how we would answer it before is we would say, well, we assigned the colors on purpose. Yeah. So when you mentioned earlier, we're not looking at the normal colors from the chakras perspective, like a xylophone up the spine. It's not that, but we still chose them, you know. So they're not synthetic colors. They're just, it's like hearing the color red or seeing the note C, you know. Is different. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say. I love you, Tanya. As you know, I think you're the most brilliant colleague for this upgrade I could have wished
Thank
for.
you.
And you know that anyway, because you are that brilliant. But it's everyone else is really lucky that we're doing this together and it's structured. And I'm so grateful because, you know, I expect people to know all this stuff. And the reason why I expect them to is because the psychic phenomenon is such that when you realize who you are from a Kundalini perspective, you actually have all of the controls and dials, the entire airplane control mechanism is also revealed to you. In the same way, I say to someone who challenges me, why does the soul mirror not have a legend, you know, to describe what people are seeing? And I said, because when people look at their own biofields, they deeply, subconsciously know what they're looking at. And if you want to pigeonhole people, be my guest, but they don't need to be pigeonholed. They can go straight from seeing what is clearly not optimized because of colors and patterns and symmetries and work with their own being without even knowing what optimized is, you know? So I'm sitting there, right there in that sweet spot. And yet still people need laminated guidance charts. People need training wheels on their bicycles. And that's what this is. This is the, we're going to hold your hand till you're confident and you just quietly let go. I've always said that about my training. I'm here holding your hand. The first person you scan, even though you don't know what you're looking at, I'm going to be interpreting those scans. So the first person comes along, you can say to them, you're going to get the best interpretation you can, because in my training, Dr. Street is going to go through your case. You're going to, and I can record you for 5 minutes. And although I don't know what I'm looking at, we know symmetry is an issue from the basic one-day train, you know, like that. So it just becomes that confidence grows. I have a team in New York, Brooklyn, of doctors who run one of the busiest clinics on earth. And I'm not even sure it isn't that by donation only. These guys are Africans, unbelievable guys. And we spent 6 months working every week, going through all of their cases. One, because they had so many different types of people, you know, like big people and little people and urban people and drugged people, and, you know, just to widen our spectrum. I mean, we did a lot of our research in India. So just having different racial groups at New York clinics, you know, that was also amazing, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, so that training was probably the longest I've ever done, 6 months. But it's because we were both learning, you know? And so it was just so juicy. It was just fun. I don't even know, those guys probably sitting the other end had a beer open. I don't know. It was definitely at the end of the day. And yet they were so passionate about their people. they were prepared to not go home and actually spend another hour doing schoolwork with me. So yeah, this course replaces that beautiful thing that I got to do with those guys in Brooklyn. That's what this is, a beautiful gift from you and me, to our current and future students. And I'm sure they feel that because we ain't getting paid.
That's all right. It's
Lots of
exciting.
love.
And it needs to happen in order for Soul Mirror and anything else to grow from this by us, having these discussions and inviting some more collaborating, people are going to see some new insights and, we're going to interpret them. The way you interpret images versus the way I interpret them are very different. We could both read the same set of imaging and say different things to a person. So that's what I love is the how intuitive it is to each one of our practices. So
Yeah.
no, it's amazing. And I'm really excited to carry on these conversations. So thank you, Thor. I appreciate it. And like I said, I'll update the notes and we can circle back with a
Okay.
few more
Well,
voices.
well, my only homework tip then for everyone is study the colors of the elements. It's important for you to know that nitrogen is X and blue and, all these different things. It's important to know because, the interface for the human body are these elements which become molecules and then become, complex structures like amino acids and proteins. Yeah. And so when we're seeing a lot of, a certain color or not, we can also speak to that too. We don't tend to go there because it's a bit abstract, but from a training perspective here, I think that's a good, voluntary homework project. Okay, well, that's
Amazing.
brilliant. I'm signing off.
Okay,
Lots of
perfect.
love
Thanks,
to
Thor.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.